The rain came down like bullets against the marble steps of the Jones estate. Jenny Getty stood at the top of the grand staircase, one hand clutching her 7-month pregnant belly, the other gripping the iron railing. "Please, Gabriel," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the roaring storm. "Just listen to me." But Gabriel Jones, trillionaire tech mogul, the man she'd married 6 months ago, looked at her with eyes colder than the December rain hammering against the windows. "I trusted you," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I gave you everything. My name. My home. My heart." Jenny's legs trembled. The baby kicked inside her, a desperate flutter that seemed to say, "Fight for us." "The photo isn't what you think," she said, taking a careful step down. "Gabriel, I've never betrayed you. That man. Don't." Gabriel held up one hand, his wedding band catching the chandelier light. "Don't insult me with more lies. I saw the photograph. I read the messages. Augustin showed me everything. Augustin Wilsey. His childhood friend and head of security. The man who'd presented the evidence 3 hours ago. A photograph of Jenny having coffee with another man, text messages that seemed damning. All twisted. All lies. Augustin is lying to you," Jenny said desperately. "He's manipulating you." "Was taken 2 weeks ago at Café Noir," Gabriel interrupted coldly. "You were supposed to be at prenatal yoga. Instead, you were having lunch with a man who had his hand over yours. He's my—" "I don't want to hear it." Gabriel's voice cracked through the foyer like thunder. Linda Bowden, the elderly housekeeper, appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face creased with worry. She'd been with the Jones family for 30 years. Her eyes met Jenny's, sympathy, understanding, and suspicion. Not of Jenny, but of the situation itself. "Leave us," Gabriel commanded, and Linda reluctantly retreated. The baby kicked harder. Jenny gasped, her hand moving to the spot. Gabriel's eyes flickered to her belly, his child, and for a heartbeat, something softened. "Gabriel, please," Jenny said softly. "Feel your daughter move. Remember us." But the softness vanished, replaced by cold fury. "Love?" He laughed bitterly. "You're just another gold digger who saw a trillionaire and thought you'd hit the jackpot." "I fell in love with you before I knew who you were," Jenny whispered, remembering that spring day in the park when she'd run into a man in jeans flying a kite. No bodyguards. No wealth. Just Gabriel. "I love you still." "Stop." Gabriel moved to the door, pulling it open. The storm surged inside, wind whipping through the foyer. "Get out of my house." Jenny stared at him, unable to process the words. "I'm 7 months pregnant. There's a storm. You should have thought about that before you betrayed me." His voice was ice. "You have 10 minutes before security escorts you out. You signed a prenuptial agreement. You'll leave with nothing. Gabriel, our baby. DNA test after birth. Through lawyers. No contact." The cruelty stole her breath. "You think she might not be yours? I don't know who you are anymore." His voice cracked. "Maybe I never did. What would you do if the person you loved most refused to hear your truth? Drop your thoughts below, because Jenny's fight is just beginning." Jenny looked at him one last time, searching for the man who'd proposed on a moonlit beach, who'd cried at their baby's first ultrasound. "Gone. Please," she begged. "Don't do this." He checked his watch. 9 minutes. Jenny had nothing. No family. No money. No phone. But she was carrying a life that needed her to be strong. She straightened her spine and walked past him into the storm. Rain drenched her silk nightgown instantly. Wind tore at her hair. She turned back once. Gabriel stood in the doorway, backlit and unyielding. "I'll prove my innocence," she said over the storm. And you'll regret this forever. He stepped back and slammed the door. The lock clicked. Jenny was alone, 7 months pregnant, barefoot, nowhere to go. But she started walking down the gravel driveway, each step agony on her bare feet. Lightning split the sky, illuminating a figure watching from an upstairs window. Augustin Wilsey. And he was smiling. Jenny collapsed at a bus stop 3 blocks from the estate, her feet bleeding, body shaking from cold and shock. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the damage was done. She was soaked, freezing, and contractions, false ones she prayed, rippled across her belly. A car slowed beside her. Jenny tensed, but relaxed when she saw the kind face of an elderly woman behind the wheel. "Dear God, are you all right?" The woman, Faith Sheldon, according to the hospital volunteer badge on her coat, rushed out with a blanket. "What happened to you?" Jenny couldn't speak. She just sobbed. Faith didn't ask questions. She helped Jenny into her car, cranked up the heat, and drove to the nearest hospital. "I'm a retired nurse," Faith said gently. "You're going to be okay. Both of you." At the emergency room, Faith stayed by Jenny's side while doctors checked her vitals and the baby's heartbeat. Strong. Steady. A fighter, like her mother. "The baby's fine," Dr. Deborah Boyett said, relief evident in her voice. "But you're hypothermic and dehydrated. We need to admit you overnight." Jenny nodded numbly. She had no insurance card, no ID, nothing. But Faith squeezed her hand. "I'll take care of it," she whispered. That night, lying in the hospital bed with warm blankets and an 4 drip, Jenny finally told Faith everything. The whirlwind romance. The marriage. The photograph. Augustin's lies. Gabriel's cold rejection. Faith listened without judgment. When Jenny finished, the older woman's eyes were hard with determination. "That man in the photo," Faith said carefully. "Who was he really?" Jenny's voice broke. "My brother. Daniel Getty. He's been in witness protection for 3 years after testifying against a crime syndicate. That was the first time I'd seen him since my wedding. The messages were about keeping his location secret, about him wanting to meet his niece when she's born." Tears streamed down her face. "I couldn't tell Gabriel. I'd signed federal documents. I was protecting Daniel's life." Faith's expression shifted from sympathy to fury. "And this Augustin knew? He must have." Jenny's hands clenched. "Daniel's handler warned me someone had been asking questions about me. I thought they'd stopped. But Augustin must have found out somehow and twisted it to look like an affair. Why would he do that?" Jenny had been asking herself the same question for hours. "I don't know. Gabriel trusts him completely. They grew up together after Gabriel's parents died. Augustin's been by his side for 20 years. Faith stood abruptly. "Then we need to find out why he'd betray that trust. And we need to prove your innocence." "How?" Jenny felt hopeless. "I have nothing. No money, no proof, no way to contact Daniel without compromising his safety." "You have me," Faith said firmly. "And you're stronger than you think." The next morning, Faith took Jenny to her small but cozy home on the outskirts of the city. "You'll stay here until we figure this out," she insisted. "I raised 5 children in this house. There's plenty of room." Jenny wanted to refuse, she'd imposed enough, but she had nowhere else to go. She accepted with gratitude that made her throat tight. Over the next week, Faith became the mother Jenny had lost years ago. She bought Jenny clothes, prenatal vitamins, and helped her rest and recover. But Faith was also a woman of action. "I have a friend," Faith said one morning over breakfast. "She works in private security. Used to be FBI. If anyone can dig up dirt on Augustin Wilsey, it's her." 2 days later, Faith's friend, a sharp-eyed woman named Deborah Boyett, who turned out to be the same doctor from the ER and apparently had multiple careers, arrived with a laptop and grim determination. "I've been looking into Augustin Wilsey," Deborah said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "And there's something very interesting about his finances." Jenny leaned forward. "What?" "He's been siphoning money from Gabriel's company for the past 2 years. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but it adds up to nearly $50 million. Jenny's breath caught. "Embezzlement?" "Yes. And there's more." Deborah pulled up a photo. "Recognize her?" The woman in the photo was beautiful, dark-haired, elegant. She was standing close to Augustin, her hand on his arm, their body language intimate. Jenny shook her head. "Her name is Bianca Dodd," Deborah said. "She's a corporate lawyer who specializes in hostile takeovers. She and Augustin have been meeting regularly for 6 months, right around the time you married Gabriel." The pieces started clicking together in Jenny's mind. "They're planning something. I think they're trying to force Gabriel into a position where he's emotionally compromised and vulnerable," Faith said. "With you gone and Gabriel devastated, Augustin could manipulate him into signing over power of attorney, making bad business decisions. Or worse," Deborah interjected. "If Gabriel divorces you and remains unmarried, Augustin is named in Gabriel's will as successor to the company if anything happens to him. It's an old clause from when they were younger. Would you trust your oldest friend with your fortune? Sometimes the people closest to us hide the darkest secrets. What do you think Augustin's real plan is? Comment below." Jenny felt sick. "He's going to try to kill Gabriel." "We don't know that for certain," Deborah cautioned. "But we have enough to prove Augustin isn't who Gabriel thinks he is. We need to get this to Gabriel," Jenny said, standing despite her protruding belly. "Now." Faith shook her head. "He won't see you. We need a different approach." "Then we go to someone he will see," Jenny said, an idea forming. "Linda Bowden. The housekeeper. She's known Gabriel his whole life. She'll believe me. And she'll make him listen." Getting to Linda Bowden proved easier than expected. Faith drove Jenny to the local market where Linda shopped every Thursday morning, a routine the housekeeper had maintained for decades. Jenny waited near the organic produce section, her heart pounding. When Linda appeared, pushing a cart and examining apples, Jenny stepped forward. "Mrs. Bowden," she said softly. Linda spun around, her eyes widening at the sight of Jenny, now dressed in simple jeans and a maternity sweater, her face free of the terror from that stormy night, but still bearing the weight of everything she'd endured. "Jenny," Linda breathed. She glanced around nervously, then pulled Jenny behind a display of wine bottles. "You shouldn't be here. If Augustin finds out." "So you know," Jenny said. "You know something's wrong." Linda's face crumpled. "I've suspected for weeks. The way Augustin watches you, the way he's been manipulating Gabriel's schedule to keep you two apart, how he's been whispering poison in Gabriel's ear about trust and loyalty." She gripped Jenny's hands. "But that night during the storm, when Gabriel threw you out, I knew Augustin had done something terrible. Gabriel isn't cruel. That wasn't him. It wasn't his fault," Jenny said, though the words still hurt. "Augustin showed him fake evidence. Made him think I was having an affair. I knew it." Linda's eyes flashed with anger. "Tell me everything." Jenny did. She told Linda about Daniel, about witness protection, about the embezzlement Deborah had discovered, about Bianca Dodd and the suspicion that Augustin was positioning himself to take over Gabriel's empire. When Jenny finished, Linda was pale but resolute. "Gabriel's been different since you left," she said quietly. "He barely eats. Doesn't sleep. I found him in the nursery last night, just sitting in the rocking chair you two picked out together, staring at nothing. He's destroying himself with guilt and grief." Jenny's heart clenched. Does he ever mention me?" "Every day," Linda whispered. "He asks if I've heard from you, if I know where you are, if you and the baby are safe. But whenever I try to suggest that maybe he was wrong, Augustin appears and reminds him of the evidence. It's like he's got Gabriel in a cage. Then we break him out, Jenny said firmly. I have proof. We need to show Gabriel the truth about Augustin. Linda nodded. There's a charity gala at the estate tomorrow night. Gabriel's hosting it. Augustin insisted, said it would be good for his image. The place will be full of people, press, cameras. Augustin won't be able to control the situation completely. Can you get me inside? Better than that, Linda said with a sly smile. I can get you onto the stage. The next evening, Jenny stood backstage at the Jones estate, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might wake the baby. She wore a simple black maternity dress that Faith had bought her, and Deborah had styled her hair into an elegant updo. She looked nothing like the desperate, rain-soaked woman who'd been cast out 2 weeks ago. She looked strong. Determined. Ready. The gala was in full swing. Through the curtain, Jenny could see hundreds of guests in tuxedos and gowns, champagne glasses glittering under crystal chandeliers. And there, at the center of it all, was Gabriel. He looked terrible. His tuxedo fit perfectly, but his face was gaunt, shadows under his eyes, his smile forced and hollow. He was giving a speech about his charitable foundation, but his heart clearly wasn't in it. Beside him, like a shadow, stood Augustin Wilsey. Impeccably dressed, perfectly composed, his hand occasionally touching Gabriel's shoulder in a gesture that looked supportive but Jenny now recognized as controlling. And next to Augustin was Bianca Dodd, stunning in a red gown, playing the role of his date but her eyes constantly scanning the room with calculating precision. You ready? Linda whispered, appearing at Jenny's elbow. Jenny nodded, clutching the USB drive Deborah had prepared, containing all the evidence of Augustin's embezzlement, his meetings with Bianca, everything they'd uncovered. Gabriel's about to finish his speech, Linda said. When he does, the MC will invite questions from the audience. That's when I'll signal you. Jenny's hands trembled, but she steadied them on her belly. The baby kicked, as if offering encouragement. Gabriel concluded his speech to polite applause. The MC, a polished woman in her 50s, stepped forward with a microphone. Mr. Jones has graciously agreed to take a few questions about the Foundation's work. Linda caught the MC's eye and gave a subtle nod. The MC's expression flickered with surprise, but she recovered smoothly. Actually, we have a special guest who'd like to address Mr. Jones directly. Augustin's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. Gabriel looked confused. And Jenny walked onto the stage. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Camera flashes exploded like stars. Gabriel's face went white, his mouth opening in shock. Jenny, he breathed, though no one but those closest to the stage could hear him. Augustin's expression transformed from shock to fury to calculated calm in the space of a heartbeat. He stepped forward, but Bianca grabbed his arm, whispering urgently in his ear. He stopped, but his eyes burned with hatred as he stared at Jenny. Jenny took the microphone from the stunned MC with trembling hands. Good evening, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. My name is Jenny Getty Jones. I'm Gabriel's wife. And I'm here to tell you all the truth about the man standing beside him. The ballroom fell into absolute silence. Every eye was on Jenny, on her protruding belly, on Gabriel's shocked face, on Augustin's barely controlled rage. 2 weeks ago, Jenny continued, her voice growing stronger, I was thrown out of my home in the middle of a storm. I was 7 months pregnant, barefoot, with nowhere to go. My husband believed I had betrayed him, that I had been unfaithful. He believed this because his most trusted friend, his head of security, showed him evidence that seemed irrefutable. Gabriel tried to speak, but no words came out. He looked like a man watching his entire world crumble. That evidence was a lie, Jenny said. She held up the USB drive. The man in that photograph wasn't my lover. He was my brother, Daniel Getty, who has been in witness protection for 3 years. I couldn't tell my husband about him because I'd signed federal documents to protect my brother's life. The messages that seemed intimate were about keeping him safe, about him wanting to meet his niece when she's born. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Reporters were frantically taking notes. Cameras were recording everything. Augustin stepped forward. "This is absurd," he said smoothly, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "Gabriel, she's desperate. She's lying to get back into your life, into your fortune." "Am I?" Jenny cut him off. She looked directly at Gabriel. "Then explain why Augustin has embezzled nearly $50 million from your company over the past 2 years." The room exploded. Gabriel's head whipped toward Augustin, his expression a mix of disbelief and dawning horror. "That's a lie." Augustin snarled, his composure finally cracking. "Is it?" Jenny gestured to the large screen behind her. Linda, working the tech booth, pulled up the first file from the USB drive. Bank statements appeared, account numbers, transaction records, all meticulously documented by Deborah's investigation. "These are your accounts, Augustin," Jenny said. "Offshore. Hidden. Funded by money stolen from Gabriel's company through shell corporations and false invoices." Gabriel stared at the screen, his face ashen. "Augustin," he said quietly, dangerously. "Tell me this isn't real." Augustin's jaw clenched. "She's fabricated this. She's had weeks to create false evidence." "Then explain your relationship with Bianca Dodd," Jenny said, nodding toward the woman in red. Bianca's eyes widened. She tried to slip toward the exit, but several guests had moved to block the doors, sensing the drama unfolding was too explosive to miss. The screen changed. Photos appeared. Augustin and Bianca meeting in restaurants, in parking garages, in her office. Timestamps showed they'd been meeting for months. "Ms. Dodd specializes in hostile corporate takeovers," Jenny explained. "She and Augustin have been planning to seize control of your company, Gabriel. With me gone and you emotionally devastated, Augustin was going to manipulate you into signing over power of attorney. And if that didn't work?" She paused, her voice catching. "You have a clause in your will. If you die unmarried and without children, Augustin inherits everything." The implication hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Gabriel turned to Augustin, and for the first time, Jenny saw pure, unadulterated fury in her husband's eyes. 20 years, Gabriel said, his voice shaking. 20 years of friendship. I trusted you with my life, my company, my family. And you were planning to kill me? No. Augustin shouted, but his denial rang hollow. Gabriel, listen to me. I'm done listening to you. Gabriel's voice was ice. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Security, this is Gabriel Jones. I need the police here immediately. Augustin Wilsey is to be detained for embezzlement and conspiracy. Bianca Dodd as well. Augustin's face twisted with rage. You're choosing her over me? After everything I've done for you? I built this empire with you. I was there when your parents died. I've been loyal. You've been a leech, Gabriel said quietly. And a liar. And I was too blind to see it. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Augustin looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped. The guests had formed a loose circle, blocking every exit. Bianca had already been cornered by 2 former FBI agents who happened to be attending the gala. Augustin's eyes locked on Jenny. Pure hatred blazed in them. This is your fault, he hissed. You ruined everything. He lunged toward her. Gabriel moved faster than Jenny had ever seen him move. He intercepted Augustin, shoving him back with enough force to send him sprawling onto the marble floor. Don't you dare touch my wife, Gabriel said, standing protectively in front of Jenny. And in that moment, Jenny's heart, which had been broken and frozen for 2 weeks, began to thaw. Police flooded into the ballroom. Augustin was hauled to his feet, handcuffs clicking around his wrists. Bianca was similarly detained, shouting about lawyers and lawsuits, but no one was listening. The guests erupted in chaos, some trying to get statements, others filming everything on their phones, reporters shouting questions. But Gabriel ignored all of it. He turned to Jenny, and the look in his eyes, devastation, relief, love, guilt, made her knees weak. "Jenny," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Gabriel reached for Jenny's hand, hesitant, as if afraid she'd pull away. When she didn't, when her fingers intertwined with his composure finally shattered. "I threw you out," he said, his voice breaking. "I threw you out into a storm. Pregnant. Alone. I didn't listen. I didn't trust you. I believed lies over the woman I love." Tears streamed down his face. "How can you ever forgive me?" Jenny wanted to be angry. Part of her was, the part that remembered the cold rain, the gravel cutting her feet, the lock clicking as the door shut on her life. But she also saw the man she'd fallen in love with, broken and remorseful, manipulated by someone he trusted for decades. "You were lied to," she said softly. "Augustin knew exactly how to hurt you, how to make you doubt. He used your trauma from losing your parents, your fear of being betrayed like your father was in business. He weaponized everything you'd confided in him." "That's no excuse," Gabriel said firmly. "I should have listened to you. I should have given you a chance to explain. Instead, His voice caught as his eyes dropped to her belly. "I could have lost you both. If something had happened to you, if the baby—" "We're okay," Jenny assured him, placing his hand on her stomach. The baby kicked immediately, as if recognizing her father's touch. Gabriel's face crumpled with emotion. "I felt her," he whispered in wonder. "She's so strong." "Like her mother," said a voice. They turned to see Faith Sheldon approaching, with Deborah Boyett and Linda Bowden beside her. The three women who'd saved Jenny when she'd had nothing. Gabriel looked at them with profound gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for protecting them when I failed to." Faith smiled gently. "Your wife is a fighter, Mr. Jones. She never gave up on you, even when she had every reason to." "I don't deserve her," Gabriel said, looking back at Jenny. "No," Jenny agreed, a hint of steel in her voice. "You don't." "Not yet." Gabriel flinched but nodded. "Tell me what I need to do. Tell me how to earn your trust back. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after it was shattered? How did you do it? Share your story below." Jenny and Gabriel's journey to healing has just begun. Jenny took a deep breath. "We need counseling. Real, professional help to work through this. You need to understand why you were so quick to believe the worst of me. And I need to understand why I kept my brother a secret, even though I had valid reasons." "Done," Gabriel said immediately. "Anything else?" "You need to rebuild the company's security from the ground up. No more putting absolute trust in one person. Checks and balances. Transparency." "Agreed." "And—" Jenny's voice softened. "You need to spend time getting to know me again. Really know me. Not as a whirlwind romance, but as a real relationship built on communication and honesty." Gabriel cupped her face gently. "I want that more than anything. I want to deserve you. I want to be the father our daughter needs. The husband you deserve." Jenny felt tears well up. "It's going to take time." "I have all the time in the world," Gabriel promised. Over the next 2 months, Gabriel kept every promise. He hired the best marriage counselor in the city, and they attended sessions 3 times a week. In those sessions, Jenny learned that Gabriel's quick acceptance of Augustin's lies stemmed from deep-seated abandonment issues. His parents had died in a plane crash orchestrated by a business partner they trusted implicitly. Gabriel had been 16, and Augustin had been there for him through it all, which created an unhealthy codependency Gabriel had never examined. Jenny, for her part, had to confront her own fears about vulnerability. She'd kept Daniel's witness protection secret not just because of federal requirements, but because she'd been afraid that Gabriel would think her family was damaged or dangerous. She'd been trying to be perfect, to be worthy of his love, instead of trusting that he'd love her flaws and all. They learned to communicate. Really communicate. Not just about the big things, but the small daily frustrations and joys that build a real relationship. Gabriel also made changes at his company. He hired Deborah Boyd as his new head of security. Her FBI background and keen investigative skills made her perfect for the role. He implemented new oversight protocols, rotating audits, and transparency measures that would prevent anyone from ever embezzling again. Augustin and Bianca were both indicted on multiple charges. The trial was set for the following year, but the evidence was so overwhelming that their lawyers were already negotiating plea deals. And Jenny moved back into the estate, not into the master bedroom immediately, but into a guest suite where she and Gabriel could take things slow. Every evening, he'd join her for dinner. They'd talk about their days, their dreams, their fears. He'd ask about the baby, feel her kick, read parenting books aloud. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt. One evening, about 6 weeks after the gala, Gabriel knocked on Jenny's door with a nervous expression. "I have something for you," he said. He led her to the nursery, the room he'd been sitting in during those dark weeks after she'd left. But it had been transformed. The walls were now painted with a beautiful mural of a starry sky, constellations traced in gold. The crib was set up, adorned with soft blankets in shades of lavender and cream. A rocking chair sat by the window, a mobile of moons and stars hanging above it. But what caught Jenny's attention was the framed photograph on the dresser. It was the picture of her and Daniel from Café Noir, the one Augustin had twisted into evidence of an affair. But now it was displayed proudly, a reminder of family, of the brother she protected, of the truth that had nearly been buried. "I called Daniel's handler," Gabriel said softly. "Explained everything. Asked if there was any way Daniel could attend the birth, even just virtually. They're working on a secure video connection." Jenny's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "You did that for me." "I did that for us," Gabriel corrected. "Family is everything. I should have understood that from the beginning." Jenny walked into his arms, and for the first time since that terrible night, she let herself fully embrace him. Gabriel held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, his hand resting protectively on her belly where their daughter kicked and rolled. "I love you," Jenny whispered. "I never stopped." "I love you too," Gabriel said. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." 2 weeks later, at exactly 3:47 a.m., Jenny's water broke. Gabriel, who'd been sleeping in the chair beside her bed, he'd taken to doing that as they grew closer, wanting to be near her, bolted awake immediately. "It's time?" he asked, his voice a mix of excitement and sheer terror. "It's time," Jenny confirmed, breathing through a contraction. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Gabriel held her hand the entire way, breathing with her through contractions, whispering encouragement. When they arrived, the medical team was ready. Faith Sheldon had pulled strings to ensure Jenny had the best care possible. Labor was long and difficult. 16 hours of pain, exhaustion, and moments where Jenny wasn't sure she could continue. But Gabriel never left her side. He wiped her forehead with cool cloths, reminded her to breathe, told her she was the strongest person he'd ever known. And when Dr. Deborah Boyd finally said, "One more push, Jenny, you can do this," Gabriel's face was right there, his eyes locked on hers. "You've got this," he whispered. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Jenny pushed with everything she had. And then, cutting through the tension and pain and exhaustion, came the most beautiful sound in the world. Their daughter's first cry. "She's here," Deborah announced, holding up a tiny, perfect baby girl with a thick shock of dark hair and lungs that proclaimed her arrival to the entire hospital floor. She's perfect. They placed her on Jenny's chest, and time seemed to stop. Gabriel's arms came around them both, creating a circle of warmth and love and family. "Hi, sweetheart," Jenny whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been waiting for you." The baby's eyes, dark like Gabriel's, blinked open, and she seemed to look right at her mother. Her tiny hand wrapped around Jenny's finger with surprising strength. "She's so beautiful," Gabriel breathed, his voice choked with emotion. "She looks just like you." "She has your eyes," Jenny said. "Can I?" Gabriel asked, his hands hovering uncertainly. Jenny helped him take their daughter, showing him how to support her head. Gabriel held his child with infinite care, looking at her like she was made of starlight. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "I'm your daddy. And I promise you, I will never let you down. I will protect you and your mother with everything I have. I will be worthy of you." The baby made a soft sound, and Gabriel laughed, a sound of pure, unbridled joy. A nurse knocked softly. "There's a video call requesting to connect. Should I put it through?" Jenny's heart leaped. Yes. The screen on the wall flickered to life, and there was Daniel, her brother, whom she hadn't seen in person since her wedding. He was older, bearded now, but his eyes were the same. "Jenny," he said, his voice breaking. "Oh my God, you're okay. You're both okay." "We're perfect," Jenny said, fresh tears falling. "Daniel, meet your niece." Gabriel turned so Daniel could see the baby. Daniel's face crumpled with emotion. "She's gorgeous," he said. "What's her name?" Jenny and Gabriel looked at each other. They'd discussed names, but couldn't agree. Now, looking at their daughter, Jenny knew. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope Faith Jones." Gabriel's eyes widened, then softened with understanding. "After Faith Sheldon. The woman who saved you when I failed to. And because hope is what got me through the darkest time," Jenny said. "Hope that the truth would come out. Hope that you'd remember our love. Hope for our future." Gabriel kissed Jenny's forehead, then their daughter's. "Hope Faith Jones," he repeated. "It's perfect." 3 months later, the Jones family hosted a small, intimate gathering at the estate, not a lavish gala, but a simple celebration of Hope's dedication ceremony. Faith Sheldon was there, beaming as she held her namesake. Deborah Boyd attended with her partner, regaling everyone with stories of the watertight case they'd built against Augustin and Bianca. Linda Bowden had baked a 3-tier cake and spent the entire afternoon making sure every detail was perfect. Even Daniel was able to attend, in person this time, his witness protection status lifted after the crime syndicate he'd testified against had been completely dismantled. He held his niece with wonder, already wrapped around her tiny finger. Gabriel stood at Jenny's side, his arm around her waist, watching their friends and family celebrate Hope's arrival. The journey to this moment had been painful, marked by betrayal and heartbreak, but it had also been transformative. "Do you ever think about that night?" Jenny asked quietly. "The storm?" Gabriel's expression darkened with regret. "Every day. It's my greatest shame. It's also what led us here," Jenny said. "We probably would have coasted along, thinking our whirlwind romance was enough, never building the real foundation we needed. What Augustin did was terrible, but in a way, it forced us to really see each other. To fight for us." Gabriel turned to face her fully. "I will regret hurting you for the rest of my life. But you're right. We're stronger now. We're real now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Jenny's breath caught. "This isn't a proposal," Gabriel said quickly. "We're already married. But that night, in my anger and pain, I told you to leave your rings. I want to replace them, not with something more expensive or flashy, but with something that means more." He opened the box. Inside were two simple platinum bands, inscribed with coordinates. "That's the park where we met," Jenny said, recognizing the numbers. "And this," Gabriel pointed to the second set of coordinates on the second ring, "is the hospital where hope was born. The place where we truly became a family." Jenny's tears fell freely as Gabriel slipped the new ring onto her finger. She did the same for him, their old wedding bands replaced with ones that told their real story, not a fairy tale, but something messier, more painful, and infinitely more precious. "I love you," Gabriel said. "Thank you for fighting for us. Thank you for giving me a second chance I didn't deserve." "I love you too," Jenny said. "And thank you for doing the work to earn it." They kissed, and across the room, Hope let out a delighted squeal, as if applauding her parents. Faith appeared at their side, the baby in her arms. "Someone wants her mama and dada," she said with a knowing smile. Gabriel took Hope, and Jenny wrapped her arms around both of them, her husband, her daughter, her family. The storm had passed. The lies had been exposed. The betrayal had been confronted. And in its place was something real, something hard-won, something that would last. Jenny lost everything in a storm, but found something more valuable than any fortune. True love, real family, and unbreakable strength. What's the most important thing you've learned from hardship? Share below, and remember, sometimes the darkest storms lead to the brightest new beginnings. As the sun set over the estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jenny looked around at the people who'd saved her. Faith, Deborah, Linda, Daniel, and the man who'd learned to deserve her love. This was her family. This was her home. And this, finally, was her happy ending. But really, it was just the beginning. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. If Jenny's story touched your heart, please hit that like button and let us know in the comments what inspired you most about her strength and resilience. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories that will move you, inspire you, and remind you that even in our darkest moments, hope can light the way. We have many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Until next time, remember that your story matters, and we're here to share it with the world. See you in the next story.